Good afternoon. I would like to extend a warm welcome to our invited guest from Scotch College, Mr. Matthew Disher, who is the head of middle school, and Dr. Kelly Schaff, the Director of Operations, Scotch International Education. And thank you very much for your time joining our webinar discussion today. So as you know that the Australian Grammar School, AGS Vietnam, has been working in strategic partnership with Scotch International Education and the South Australia Certificate Education, SAIS, with a shared visions of bringing into Vietnam an excellent and sustainable education quality. So to increase our students and parents' understand and confidence in Scotch academic excellence, I would like to ask a few questions about the middle school curriculum, teachings and learning activities, and so on. So with the first question, the middle school is a very distinctive phase for a children's education. So can you please share with us what are the main focuses in academic curriculum for middle school from year 7 to year 9? And does the curriculum need to be in alignment with the national curriculum developed by the Australian Curriculum Assessment Reporting Authority? How and to what extent?
Thank you. Yes, the main focus of the academic curriculum is really about developing foundational knowledge and skills required not only for the academic subject, but also in wider life. The foundational skills part of this is really important, as these are the learnings that take place at school that can be transferred to the other contexts beyond school. So outside of school, in the workplace, etc. And when we talk about foundational skills, they may be things like practical skills, so hands-on skills, or more transferable skills. So things like critical and creative thinking. It might be the way in which we approach problems or solving problems. It might be in the way we think in order to apply knowledge. That's really the focus there as well, because they're the skills that students are going to take forward into their senior high school years and as well beyond that too. So middle school is a really good time to develop those types of skills. In regard to the Australian curriculum and the alignment with the national curriculum, the curriculum does need to be aligned with the Australian curriculum. The Australian curriculum presents curriculum as a developmental sequence of learning, and so aligning to Australian curriculum means that you are developing the knowledge and skills in students at a particular stage of that developmental sequence. But in saying that, there is a lot of freedom in the way in which you can do that. So the Australian curriculum states the objectives of learning, but Scotch and its teachers are able to develop unique programs and activities that can take place to achieve this. And really what that results in is Scotch being able to develop teaching and learning programs that suit the context of our students, that may be different to students at, say, another school. It's quite unique to Scotch.
So can you just be a little bit more specific? What really makes the teaching and learning program unique and differentiated at Scotch?
It really comes back to wanting to align, I guess, the learning that takes place with the context of our students and also the world in which that they're engaging with. So where we can actually learn through experience, we do. So sometimes it can be easy to get caught up in learning in isolation, but where we can actually align that to the world and put that into practice with the world that's directly around our students, we try to do that. So again, it could be, learning and activities that are hands-on. It might be about getting off site and visiting places. It might be learning in a different environment that's not necessarily on site at school, for example, through a camp program.
And in saying that, so at the end of the day, what are the characters, attributes that Scotch students would be expected to achieve from those learning programs?
So I guess with academic subjects, they do have specific learning outcomes that the academic subject are aiming to achieve. So those learning objectives that come out of the curriculum and specified by the national curriculum. But when we think about more broadly about Scotch students and the attributes that they have as graduates, we think a bit more holistically about that. So Scotch aims for middle year students to be globally minded and culturally aware, think critically about and be innovative and creative in their approach to solving real world problems, and ultimately to have knowledge, passion and a commitment to enhance their own and others' lives. It's a bold goal, and I think they're really brave learning objectives to have as a school, to not just think about objectives and qualities being related to a subject, but it is something that we aim to do there as well. And I guess how that's achieved and what that looks like is that, you know, we do some specialised learning, and that takes place in some really specialised learning areas. So, for example, that could be an agricultural centre, a science laboratory, a theatre, art studio, kitchens, technology workshops. But we want that learning to take place in learning environments that reflect what the learning that we want to achieve there as well. And I think as well, we need to make sure that all students are appropriately challenged to achieve those outcomes as well. And so our teaching and learning programs are differentiated, and our teachers are differentiating in many ways. They might differentiate by interest or advocacy, for example, allowing students to make decisions about what they are learning or how they are going to show their learning. They might differentiate instruction, for example, explaining things in different ways, or using flexible groupings for students so that students with different learning profiles can engage with knowledge or skill that's being taught. And they also might differentiate learning activities and assessments so that students with different learning profiles can all engage with activities and demonstrate the knowledge and skills that they have learned from that engagement.
Thank you, Matt, too. Now, we would like to know a little bit more about the subjects, you know, the main subject that middle school student would be able to choose from. So some, you know, for compulsory subject and the optional work study subjects.
Yeah, thank you very much for having us today. We're really excited to be working with AGS Vietnam. There's a whole range of subjects we offer in middle school at Scotch College, and all of those subjects have a pathway through to Year 12. And I guess the key thing we're trying to do in middle school is give students a chance to try everything, but also lay the most important foundations for future learning. So all of the students study maths and science. It's prioritised in our curriculum, and and English as well. And some students will study multiple sciences as they go through middle school. So, for example, students might undertake 5 or 6 lessons of maths, 5 or 6 lessons of English, and 5 or 6 lessons of mainstream, what we call mainstream or core science, which would combine a little bit of all of the specialist sciences we offer then in senior school. And some of those are what we would consider traditional sciences, biology, chemistry and physics. But then we also offer some other sciences, for example, agriculture, sports science, nutrition and psychology. And so students will undertake these, the learning in middle school that they need in order to pick the area or the specialisation that best matches their interest. So our middle school science program is actually really exciting because students get a chance to try all the different types of science that they can then choose later in their schooling. All students in Year 7 and 8 also study a second language at Scotch, and then once they get to Year 9, they can decide whether or not they want to continue with that language. They all study history and geography. They're compulsory parts of the Australian curriculum, and there's also an economic style program that's embedded in those. And then because Scotch has a kind of holistic view of wellbeing from right from the early years through to Year 12, all students at Scotch study PE, health and wellbeing as compulsory curriculum areas in the middle school. The wellbeing program focuses on physical health because we know that that's important in middle school, but also on mental health and the students' emotional wellbeing. So we take them through a whole series of programs that aim to develop resilience, that aim to help promote positive mental health and promote positive wellbeing for young people going forward. And then beyond those core subjects, we also have a range of what we call elective subjects, which are the subjects that students can choose. So in Year 7 and 8, we structure the curriculum so that every child has a taste of all of these subjects. So with the mindset that middle school is the time to try everything, and then in senior school kids can specialise, we actually want to give students an opportunity to know what the subjects are going to offer so they can make really good, responsible choices. So in the performing arts domain, students might have a go at dance, drama. They might be involved in some singing lessons. They might decide to do filmmaking or fashion design or photography. Design subjects, we have an engineering type subject and game design, and a design and technology where students are working in a workshop actually building things with construction materials. And then we also have food technology, which is a really popular choice because the students love to eat what they've cooked. So in line with what Matthew said, we want to have opportunities for students to learn the academic rigour that's going to be required at Year 11 and 12, and the core subjects certainly provide a platform for that. But we also want to engage them in hands-on learning as much as possible and give them a range of learning experiences so that they can learn how they learn best.
Thank you, Kelly. This sounds like the school offers a lot of different wide range of subjects so that the student can try and test and see what their strengths and weaknesses. So that's a good pathway for them to the senior school where they can choose a subject that they specialize in. So now I just want to know a little bit more about the specialist subjects, or what we call is the accelerations courses. Do we offer, you know, advanced and accelerations course for those students that highly talented and high performing?
Yes, we do. The middle school subjects are designed to prepare students for future acceleration. So one of the things that's really common in Scotch senior students is that they will undertake what we call an accelerated pathway. So they might actually be studying, for example, a Year 12 equivalent subject when they're in Year 11, or a university equivalent subject when they're in Year 10. And what we do in middle school is try and lay the foundation for that so that students have the opportunity to accelerate if they want to. They might start an accelerated pathway in middle school. For example, a Year 8 student might start undertaking the Year 9 maths program. But what we do is make individual choices for individual children. So we don't stream and decide that every child needs to be categorised into a certain level of ability. We actually look at the individual and decide that, you know, one individual may require some acceleration in a particular subject area, but may not require acceleration across all subjects. So it's a highly individualised approach to acceleration in middle school. And then we also have what we call our challenge and enrichment program. So for those students that you were talking about, who are those students who are very academically gifted, very capable, our challenge and enrichment program offers individualised mentoring. And the challenge and enrichment mentor will work with the classroom teachers across all subjects for a student and make sure that opportunities for additional challenge or learning enrichment are provided in the mainstream classrooms with their peers. And that goes really nicely with what Matthew mentioned before around differentiation, because we know that for a young person to be experiencing really positive wellbeing, they actually need to be feeling appropriately challenged and engaged in what they're doing. So having this challenge and enrichment program means that for those students who are academically gifted, we're actually pitching the learning at just the right level. And one of the key things about Scotch, and you'll hear us talk about this a lot when you talk to us about the school, is that learning is quite personalised. So we are very aware of all of our students, and we're aware of, you know, the strengths and talents of the individual, not just of the student cohort as a whole. So a lot of what we do around challenge and enrichment, especially in those middle years, is about recognising areas for where students require that acceleration. And I'll also say, in addition to kind of the academic subjects, we also have accelerated pathways in our sport programs as well, and our music programs, which are co-curricular. But there are opportunities for students who are talented in many domains to be additionally challenged.
Wow. Yeah, that's very insightful. Just back to the other question that I asked before. Can I just ask a little bit more about what are the second language that Scotch offer?
Yep. So currently we offer French and Chinese, and all students will have a choice. We still have a few students who are studying a Japanese language, but we're currently phasing that out. And what we're trying to do is introduce subjects that we think students will engage with in the future.
And another question that I would like to ask, even though I know that somehow you and Matthew already mentioned about it, but I would like to understand more about, you know, the classroom activities and how the student learn daily at Scotch. You know, because students, they might come from different learning capability and background. So what are the learning activities that have been designed and make the student more engagement and motivated?
So the classroom activities and learning experiences that we plan for at Scotch they're informed by relevance, coherence, rigour that is appropriate to the student's local and global setting. And I guess one of the ways in which we do that is we really focus on those learning spaces, so we can get that learning that's relevant happening. So, for example, we have a fully functioning agricultural farm on site to deliver our agricultural program, and that's home to cattle and our packers, chicken and sheep, as well as having an established vineyard, a stable, a shearing shed. And what that means is that the learning that students are doing in our agricultural program is very relevant to the agricultural industry. And we see that as well in subjects like our technologies. So for design and technology, we have a specialised workshop that actually allows students to develop skills. But we're using industry standard tools and machinery as well. So laser cutters and 3D printers. So we know that the skills that we're developing are actually skills that are going to be applicable in the post-school world. And I think when we think about classroom activities and how students learn, I think we also acknowledge that there's a lot of learning that happens beyond the classroom too. And things like outdoor education and our outdoor education programs, they really offer students an opportunity to appreciate and enjoy Australia's unique outdoor life. But really, it allows them to nurture some respect for the environment, and as well as enhancing some key life skills like resilience as well. Our sports program offers competitive and recreational opportunities to ensure that students live healthily and have a fulfilling life at school and beyond. Performing arts programs ensure that active participation in things like drama, musicals, dance productions, ensembles, orchestras, and they allow that imaginative, technical and creative skills to be enhanced. I think what's special about the classroom activities sometimes is the classroom, and having those really specialised spaces means that the learning that's taking place in those is really purposeful and really applicable.
So the learning activity is a highly practical design. It's like work integrated learning where the student have the opportunity to understand what happened outside there in the real world. Yeah,
absolutely.
So the next question is related to the assessment. So what forms the assessment take at Scotch, and how do the middle school students perform against the established standards? So Scotch uses quite a variety of different assessment methods. We're quite conscious of the way in which we assess. So something, for example, formative assessment is used regularly by our students, and what we're using that for is to definitely track students' progress, but also to inform our teaching. So we have our teachers assessing in this way in a variety of forms, but what it's doing is it's providing very direct feedback to students in real time that they can actually then implement for improvement. We also then, I think, have what we call summative assessment, which is really used to measure where students are in terms of the learning objectives that we're wanting them to meet. And so that's a much more formalised assessment process, which is reported as grades termly in a formal report. I think when we think about assessment and the importance of regular assessment, we use a continuous reporting process where parents can regularly see feedback about their child's learning in real time, rather than only at the end of the term. But it also means that students can track their progress and receive regular feedback about their learning, which they can improve, rather than waiting to the final moment to learn, I need to be improving in this way. We'd like that to happen earlier so that we can get them to achieve against those learning objectives as quickly as possible and as successfully as they can as well. In regard to those national benchmarks, so Scotch regularly performs above national benchmarks in standardised testing, including the National Literacy and Numeracy Assessment program, which we refer to as NAPLAN. Yes.
And I think, we don't do any specific teaching to a standardised test like that. And so because our results often, they perform above, it really validates the excellent learning that's taking place in our academic program.
Thank you, Matt, too. So this is the last question. We would like to know, how does Scotch prepare the student with the skills and knowledge before they can be transitioned to the senior high school, which is really important year for them. So the transition,
So one of the great things about Scotch is, yes, we have a middle school and yes, we have a senior school, but they're located on the same grounds. And what that means is that Our students are engaging in all these specialised learning classrooms that they will in the senior school, in the middle school. But we also have staff that are working with our middle year students who are also working with our senior year students as well. And it means that they have a real understanding of the essential skills, knowledge, and that academic rigour that is really required for success in a senior high school. And so when they're designing the learning experiences and the classroom activities, they're not only designing that to meet curriculum objectives, they're also really conscious about, how can this be used to develop some of those key skills that's going to be required in that transition into the senior high school.
Yep.
And I might just add to that one just a little bit, if I may, because I think the way that we manage transition from middle to senior school is also quite cognizant of the skills, the actual learning dispositions that students are going to need to be successful high school learners. So we do a lot of work in the middle school around making sure students understand their role in collaborative projects and how to collaborate. And that's not just about sitting next to someone and learning with them. It's actually about engaging with other people, active listening, respectful communication, so that once they get to senior school and need to work collaboratively, they've got the skills to do so. And we apply that same framework to independent learning. So things like homework, there's a lot of, literature will contest the relevance and the importance of homework at the moment. But we actually think it's really important because it helps set up good study habits, which are critical for senior school. So a compulsory part of any subject area that you study under the South Australian Certificate of Education is going to require an element of independent research. It's not a skill that students inherently know. It's a skill that needs to be taught. So we spend a lot of time in the middle school really explicitly teaching students how to conduct, valid, reliable, credible research, so that when they reach senior school and they're required to undertake these independent or these larger research projects, which actually have a relevance to how successful they are in their completion of schooling, they're actually really well equipped with the skills that they need to do that. So I think, Matthew's made a really strong case around how our programs and our staff help prepare students. But I think, there's also this whole academic skills and dispositions piece that I think we do really well here as well.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. Yeah, I agree with you. Independent research skill is highly essential, prepare them for, senior school and even with university study too. It was such a very insightful and valuable sharing from Scotch College, and I believe that students and parents would be very much benefited from this. So again, we thank you for your time today, and thank you.
Our pleasure to talk to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Kelly.